Here we are.
What's up? What's up? What's up?
Give people a little bit to log in, chime in.
It seems different without Mike in the middle.
I know, like I'm
You want to switch them out?
on the side. I don't know how that happened. Like,
Hold on. You want us
maybe Dad knows how to rearrange it. So I don't know.
So I like this.
All right. This
I don't know, man. I think
I think I've been on the right side before. This is that.
I don't want to be in the center. So we're gonna try some more. What? That'll work for me. No?
Oh shoot. Okay.
Yeah, the magic. Steve, what's going
What's
on?
up, Steve? Chilling.
Melanie, what's up? Be safe driving out there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Drive the speed limit. Don't be like Charles. Don't drive.
Oh yeah.
You know, don't drive too fast.
Charles, the professional sleep driver.
Mm-hmm. I ain't done that in a while though.
That's a good thing, man. Cause
Regine, what's up, everyone? Good evening.
Be a career ender.
Good evening. Good evening. Good
Yeah,
evening.
definitely.
Oh,
So what's going on, fellas?
Yeah, what's going on with the day? Oh, this man got tea or you're not a coffee drinker, I don't think. Actually, probably got like
Mm-hmm. I drink 1 cup of coffee a day in the morning.
Coffee drink. That's right. You are a coffee drinker. That's right.
Yeah, I like hazelnut and French vanilla and caramel macchiato creamer.
Yo, Charles be so specific about his stuff. I'm okay. On that note, I'm gonna tell a short story. So Charles was so specific about his coffee drink, and I remember you telling a story like you going into like a little corner store, deli or whatever, and you becoming like completely offended because people would take like the coffee spoon thing and maybe use the same spoon to swirl their coffee around and they put it back in the sugar. You're like, yo, there's little coffee deposits back in the sugar, like, like it starts to like crumble up. And he was offended by it. It's like, yo, like man, let me see the manager. He's like, yo, I need satisfaction. He's like, yo, like, what is this? Like,
yo, but if you drink coffee,
now see,
it's a very specific taste though.
Say again.
I said, like, if you're a coffee drinker, it's like, it's like an acquired type taste. So most people that drink coffee like their coffee a certain way, which is why I don't like I don't like Dunkin' Donuts and those type coffees. I don't like Starbucks. I don't like Dunkin'. I don't like I don't like people to make my coffee for me. That's why I like gas station coffee, bodega coffee. I like putting my own amount of cream on my own coffee and stuff like that. But I don't buy coffee in the street really at all. I have a coffee maker set to brew the coffee, whatever time I set it for, and then I make my own in the morning and bring it with me. But I order like Dominican coffee and like Colombian coffee and stuff, online and have it sent to the house.
Oh shoot, you don't play around with that local stuff, right? You have it like flown in and stuff. I hear that. All right, so let's what was we say? Oh, now Steve says, "Damn, now Dunkin' Donuts backing out." That's just fun.
No, I just messed up. Yo, I love that Dunkin' Donuts coffee, man. But this is tea. This is tea.
So, all right. So, who wants to? Okay, so I'll start off a little initial talk. So, last week we had a conversation about the beginnings of it had to do with the infamous slap situation with Will Smith and Chris Rock. Last week we had a conversation about the beginnings of it. So we had that conversation and all right. So many people have been talking about that thing, and with me, I think I said last week. I says I found the conversation on the actual incident itself, like not annoying, but I found it like almost gossipy, right? So that kind of, I didn't even want to get into that part, but I think we all thought like the bigger picture was everything that evolved around that, and it was related to like what brought like Will Smith to the point of having to do that, like what's going on in his family, what's the what's the psychological stuff behind it, how Chris Rock reacted to it, like what he should have, what he actually did, how he should have reacted. And I think the larger picture was that people started to have was, damn, look at how he made like black people look, what I mean? And that's kind of stirred up a secondary conversation about racial anxiety, right? And so somehow that came up, and we looked it up, and the racial anxiety topic is that a thing that I think we're all familiar with, and it's that same type of incident when you see like a crime happen or something like that, and you're like, oh damn, oh my God, I hope it's not a black person who did this time, or somebody robbed a store, or somebody shot up, or whatever. Like, oh, I hope. And it's that same thing where your concern, well, people of color or black people, separate category under the main thing, but black people in particular may say, okay, like, damn, I don't, somebody else is messing it up for the rest of us, kind of thing, or that mentality, and or that thought process, and then so that's connected to like how will white people look at us, and are we self-conscious about that? And then the flip side of that also has to do with racial anxiety from like a white perspective, and from there, we have all the Karen type incidents, and even having topics like this, right? So I don't know who's on here, if anyone from Concern or Rochelle forum, but even that I posted that used to be a forum that a number of times they would have racial conversations on it. Sometimes, a lot of times, they would get out of control. Some people would say people are prejudiced, racist, this and that. And several times we try to come up with conversations, and we've had people from there on here engage in conversations, and a lot of them were good conversations, but a lot of it has been lightly touched on or been like avoided. So I posted this chat in the forum, and they actually took it down. Right? So whoever did that from the group, I think didn't want to bother with that topic, or want to stay away from it. And I think part of that probably is the either somebody's like tired of hearing it, or they don't want to tiptoe around the topic, or the worry is I'll get in a conversation and somebody will kind of label me like that. So any of the above topics or anything like that. So that's one of the initial or the umbrella kind of topic we're going to get into. We're going to have branch off to a few different areas. We're going to have one or more persons join in the call as well, and so that's just kind of setting the forum open, for discussion. So, one of my other.
Well, let me ask you a question. Do you think you made a reference to how, like with racial anxiety, how Will Smith's behavior may I think you said something to the effect that like how people will look at us, or how black people look. Do you personally feel that what he did or what happened is a reflection on black people?
I've actually heard already. I've not heard it directly, but I've heard it indirectly about other people, like non-blacks, and some were Spanish and some were this or whatever, but having a conversation of, damn, look at how he's making like black people look, kind of thing. So to answer your question, like me personally, I don't walk around with it being like, all right, it's tagged on to me, but that conversation is already being had among some people. Like somebody just mentioned it to me the other day. Somebody that's not black, and they were having a conversation with somebody else, and they're saying like after, they were mentioning like, look at how he's making blacks look, kind of thing. So yeah, it's
but I mean, do you think that's because there's an actual concern about that, or is that another way to kind of tie into the racial anxiety, because I don't think that I don't think white folks take accountability as an entire race for how any of them act.
Yeah, no, I think they definitely do, right? I mean, think of like the news, right? I mean, think of the perception on just your basic news station. You know what I mean? Look at
That what?
somebody, rob somebody, or you saw an image of look at this person wanted, and you just see a blurry, dark image or something like that. You know what I mean? It could be anybody, and it's the same thing. Everybody worries about get on the elevator, somebody clutches their purse a little too tight. It's just because the constant image or perception is there. So
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that, like, if you're dealing with racism, and okay, you use the Karen. You think white people in general sit back and be like, look how this Karen is making us look?
uh, most I probably say no. We'd have to ask somebody, right?
So why should our level of accountability, why should his actions speak for all of us then?
I think I got an answer for that. I think it's the same for the same reason why black people in particular get very touchy about what occurs in the media, like in movies and in songs and stuff like that, right? Because it's a focus of us on a grand scale that is out there when you don't have a lot of other things to compare it to. For instance, like if you're in the workplace, like I've worked in plenty of environments where like I'm the only black person there. You know what I mean? So like it or
No, but
not,
I'm saying there's a difference between wanting to, definitely, how an image of you, someone else's image of you, is promoted, like say through the media or whatever. I'm talking about you taking, you know, like, accountability for you taking the accountability for it, not being concerned about, yeah, of course you're concerned about the image, how you're projected to the world through the media, but I don't I don't, not, let me not say I don't care, but to say it, like, it doesn't matter how many shootings that, like, they like to talk about in Chicago. It doesn't matter how many times that happened. I don't, I wish that wasn't going on. I wish that that wasn't happening, but I don't feel any type of certain type of black man. You know what I'm saying?
you saying you don't feel any like personal. What are you saying? Like you don't feel
No, I
personal?
don't feel, like I have to. I mean, in a community standpoint, as far as, like, yeah, I would like to see that type of stuff stop, but I don't feel like gangbangers in Chicago shooting each other are representative of me. You know what I'm saying? I think that someone else may try to promote that as an image of black men in general. And yeah, that might be something of concern because that's someone else trying to control that image. But I don't take a personal thing, like, I don't feel like, a personal accountability, so to speak, for that. Like, yo, that ain't me, you know?
Feeling the accountability. Yeah, no, I don't feel accountability, but I think I think most people feel that feel the incidents reflect on them, right? So I don't think so. That's probably the difference. I don't think there's accountability because it's not like you answer to whatever he did, but it promotes something. It's in the same way, like if you're, I don't, I mean, it's a bad example, but if you're hanging with certain people or whatever, and they do a certain thing, then it's like, all right, you're expected to like be like them kind of thing, or like the people in your group or your crew or whatever. So, you got anything to chime in with this devil? You
Well, right now I'm just listening, man.
uh,
Yeah, I'm listening.
so, yeah, so I think, yeah, I mean, I think that's what it is. It's like it's kind of like you're guilty by association.
Well, I think that, what is this? I think that is definitely, yeah, if you're trying to make a certain group look a certain way, then yeah, I agree with this comment right here. Like this is exactly what you're trying to do. But what I'm saying is that I think that it doesn't matter. It's like that they're going to look at us a certain way because of the nature of it, not be of how they already view us. Like not because of Will Smith smacked Chris Rock. You know what I'm
But
saying?
would you say the same thing? What happens on the news?
I think the news views us. I think black people in America are just viewed a certain way, and I don't think that. I think like the comment here, there's a certain, whether you want to call it gender or not, to have us viewed in a certain way, and I think that that's going to keep manifesting itself whether there's no shootings or any shooting. It'll just be something else to take a part of and be like, look at them. This is how they are. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah,
And
but to that point, though, I'm saying, I mean, so for me, like I think that it is media in general, right? Is definitely like how you perceive it can definitely be proportional to like what the repetition is of how you're viewed there, how you're displayed. You know what I mean? Like think of think of our perception in the U.S. of Africa, right? Like as kids growing up, I mean, probably damn near this year or last year or currently, right? I mean, majority of people their whole lives have had one perception of Africa until we start to know people to travel into different parts of the country. And you hear people say like, "Oh, damn!" Like it's there's parts of that are like anything is going to be good and bad parts, but this part is beautiful. It's made developed area of the country and this and this and that. We only know it from one way. From what we've seen and what little education we had in our school and what we see.
but that's what I'm saying. That's why I said it doesn't really matter, because the people that were promoting to you that this was Africa knew that that was not the limitations of Africa. It wasn't, so it was never really about your actions or your education. It was about an agenda, an indoctrination, or whatever you want to call it, that I am going to misrepresent Africa to you. It didn't have nothing to do with how you acted, how the African acted, or anything. It was that I am going to misrepresent that to you regardless, because they know that Africa is not, the bone in the nose running through the jungle underdeveloped area, because why would you be over there looting the whole continent if there was nothing but the jungle and nothing over there? You know what I mean? So that's what I'm saying. I don't think that that's really even I think it may be an excuse to be like, oh, look at Will Smith. But whether Will Smith is not Chris Rock or not, it's not like people viewed black people one way and then all of a sudden all their opinions changed because one Hollywood actor smacked another Hollywood comedian. You know what I'm saying? Is that if that's changing your views on black people in America, you probably already had some bugged out views about black people in America. You know what I'm saying?
Um,
Maybe it comes down to values, guys.
comes down to what you said.
Values, values. Because ultimately, I was raised by my grandmother, my aunt, and they were, my aunt, for instance, she'd be 101 right now. I mean, I moved in with her at 15 years old, and her whole thing was, when we do things, regardless if we're looking at it through the prism of everybody or not, we still represent one another. So pretty much in a nutshell, just always just try to be on your P's and Q's. And that was a constant that was brought up to me basically my whole life. My grandma, my grandma be 80, I don't even know how old grandma is right now. I can't do the math right now, but it was the same thing. You know what I mean? People always say, oh, you're really respectful. That all came from them. Sometimes I didn't want to be respectful, you know what I mean? But I always heard them in my head. So, it just might boil down to values, just really might boil down to values. And I definitely understand that not everybody talks to elders and older people. And I think that's a big part of the problem too. A lot of the older people, they had to move a certain way for a different time period. I don't know, you know.
But I agree with that about of the values. But that's what I'm saying. So that behavior should be because of your value system, how you represent yourself. but that's why I guess it ties into the racial anxiety, because it shouldn't even be about how am I going to be perceived by like white people, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? Or how I'm going to
No,
be
I agree
perceived
with that.
by another group of people. So that's like part of the racial anxiety you talking about, that my behavior, which may have been out of line, which I mean, in that case was definitely out of line. You know what I'm saying? But now the worrying of how someone else is going to view me. You see what I'm saying? That ties into the thing. Like, I don't think, now I'm gonna say the difference. Like, and maybe it is. Maybe a white person could speak to that. I don't think that white people do things and worry about how they're gonna be viewed by black people. You know what I'm saying? I don't really think that they're dealing with that in a way like how you were saying, like, oh, here we go again. Like, people went on to like talk about black on black crime. I was like, oh, what the, come on, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, yo, this is, where are we taking this right now? An emotional reaction, yeah, like literally Will Smith smacked the dude, and it goes to black on black crime. Yo, no, like, maybe we discussed some of the emotional and mental things he may be going through, but it's like, yo, you're tying this into black on black crime, and I can watch a whole Walmart get shot up by a white person, and you talk about it from everything the shooter's going through. Like, come on, man.
And you know what, Charles, listening to you and also reading what Allison wrote in a second ago, I'm gonna put it up there really quick. We can come back to Matthew's point. But she said young black children do the same thing.
Oh, Deb, can you read what Matt? I don't know. Did you read what Matt had up there first? I didn't.
No, I just said I'll come back to that. I'll come back to that. No problem. Young black children do the same thing. Who is referred to as a thug? I think the identity crisis really has nothing to do with the white people. It has everything to do with us. Because ultimately, to your point, I don't think white people overall necessarily have the same type of conversations we do, but also they're not affected by the same things that we are. So I think we have to make a decision ultimately. If you say you want reparations, but yet and still you don't want to deal with collectively how you're perceived or how you're looked at, I mean, you got to sort of make a decision. You know what I mean? Like, for me, it's a simple thing. When I look at people, I see what I see. But I do definitely judge people for the most part on the way they react. Excuse me, not react, but the way they act. Now, to Alice's point about being classified as a thug, I was thinking about it when they started doing those things where it was like 3 or more on a corner. Now you're a gang. You know what I mean? So I might just stop to say what up to y'all, but now all of a sudden we're a gang, and they're blitzing. These are not things that necessarily happen in other communities. So overall, like, we're constantly reminded, based on this construct, that even if we don't believe it, the construct still treats us the same, and we're still having to fight the same battle. Some of us might fight them differently. Sometimes we might not fight at all. But I hate racism personally, and I hate even having to discuss it. Matter of fact, I'm burnt out from racism. I'm quite sure you guys are too. But 2022, excuse me, versus 2020 versus 1980 versus 1970, these same type of conversations keep having to happen because we're still under the same pressures of an old construct. It still affects us. So I'm gonna say this, and I don't know, maybe some people might disagree with me, but ultimately you just have to figure out just how much your mind as a black person or a melanated person is colonized. And I mean that literally. You know what I mean? Because some people, yeah, if they get around, white people, they might start tiptoeing, but that might be one, it might be job security. Two, it might just be they don't necessarily identify as black, and they identify more with Caucasian or white people. I mean, there's a lot of different things that can happen to why people are pandering or sort of ignoring the truth of what this country is. This country is built completely off of racist ideologies, and here we are. personally, going back to the Chris Rock thing, I wish it didn't happen. I'm gonna keep saying that. But again, I feel as though what they did, even if we don't think it reflects us, to some degrees it might, to some degrees it might not. But I'll tell you what it did reflect. That was the night that there was a black man that was directing the whole thing. That was the night the Quest of Love was supposed to get this award. That was the night Samuel L. Jackson was supposed to get his thing. And ultimately, a situation happened that for our collective experience, it left a mark on that experience. Regardless if we see it that way again. So I don't know.
No, definitely. But do you think that mark would have? So if that had been any race of person that got slapped at an award show, regardless of who was going to receive the awards, regardless of who produced it, that would have been the most talked about. So it's not. That's what I'm saying. It's not how like it may internally feel worse because it was one of your own when so many of your own were going to be acknowledged and celebrated. I definitely understand that principle of it. But no matter who would have smacked whom at that awards, whether a white person smacked a black person smacked a white person smacked a white person, it would have overshadowed the event. It's not overshadowing the event strictly because it was a black person, though they may try to make it seem that way because it was a black person that smacked a black person. You see what I'm saying? And that's what I'm talking about, the racial anxiety. Like even what you said, like even to feel a need that I have to tiptoe, or not saying I personally feel it, because on my job, I don't feel the need to do that at all. But
that was going to be one of my questions coming up, but go ahead. I'll come back to that.
Yeah, like, like even that, like the need to feel I have to act or behave in a certain way at my job, like, yo, that's part of all of the racial anxiety, the always sitting there wondering if somebody did something to you because they just did it or they did it to you because you was black. You know what I'm saying? And that
I do.
I want to come back to that. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say something to that again, because for me it comes back to values. Because ultimately, to act decent, to just not do something that we always talking about. We always talk, man. I mean, I know this wasn't the ideal situation in most people's eyes, is black on black violence or whatever the hell that is, American violence. That's what I call it. But ultimately, we saw something that, I mean, pretty much the general consensus was pretty much like, wish it could have been handled another way. So just act decent. So for me to be looking at brothers on a stage and just for me personally, just be like, yo, personally, it's good to act decent. That has nothing to do with the white people. That has everything to do with the little kids that look like you that are coming up behind you. I mean, at the end of the day, the examples that we set, they still there. But then on the flip side of that, to your point, there are other people, and I'm quite sure there was a lot of racist white people out there that night, or black people who don't identify necessarily with being black, that saw that as more as a self-fulfilling prophecy, because they already project how we already act, and now it feeds that. I think there's room for all of the narratives in fairness. You know what I mean? That's why I was sort of like, nobody's opinion, technically, in my opinion, was wrong, because I'm looking like everybody was making sense to me. Even the stuff that I didn't agree with, I can see it, from how other people were looking at it. And that all comes back down to who we are as individuals, our value system, and how we deal with this racist system that we in. I guess, man, racial anxiety. I know for a damn fact, coming up in Nerd Shell, I had racial anxiety. You know what I mean? And I also know that a lot of us code switch. But are we code switching because we fearful of them, or are we code switching because we just trying to get through the day peacefully and just get our check and keep moving? The variables can be one or the other. But nevertheless, we all are adjusting to something in this racist system, in my opinion. So I thought when Mike sent the information, I had to look it up again. I thought I knew what racial anxiety was. But then when I looked it up, I'm like, wow, it was more broader than what my perspective was. You know what I mean? And I know we studied this in college, but I've been out of college 30 years. You know what I mean? At the end of the day. So don't know. I don't know.
What you was gonna say, Mike, about it? What you was gonna come back with?
So so you started to say that you don't feel that you need to now gonna be tread carefully if you need to. See, that's what people are kind of say. You don't feel you need to tread carefully around anything you do or say in the workplace. I don't think that's most people's or most black people's point of view. Most people, I think
No,
that's fair.
no, not like that. No, no. Of course, I don't want to use the word worry about, but it's like what Dev said. It's about how I conduct myself at my job because of who I feel I am as a person or how I want to represent myself as a person, not because of how white people are looking at me.
Well, that's more so what I'm talking about, right? So I am talking about that, right? So I think that's something that a lot of black people carry, like into the workplace. Like I'm gonna like how are people from other races looking at me? You know, what I mean, as you know, a black person, or and oftentimes they're not like a minority in numbers, like within this group setting kind of deal. You know, and so that's a question. So do you? So if you
Well,
ask me,
well, then that probably comes down to how you deal with. So that probably leads into a discussion of how you're dealing with the racial anxiety or how you're being affected by it. I look at it like or not all of them, not all of them, but I look at it like, let's say as a collective, like you already have whatever beliefs you already have, and I'm not tiptoeing at work trying to change it or whatever. I'm just going to represent myself how I feel I should conduct myself based off of like my value system, and how I believe I should behave. I'm not going to not behave how I feel I should behave because a white person feels I should behave that way. That's what I'm saying. Because you already probably, I'm not going to say what they do or don't have, but a lot of people already have, especially at the age we are, they already have their ideas, their ideology, their preconceived notions, and this goes both ways. I'm talking about humans. I'm not talking about just color, And I'm not wasting no energy trying to tell somebody that don't even know me change their. What I'm not wasting that energy to try to change your opinion of me, and you don't even know me. You know what I'm saying? You
yeah,
know, I'm like, yo, whatever. Keep it moving then. That's what I always say. Yo, you keep it moving, man. I don't hang with, especially at work. I don't hang with y'all outside of work, man. I started that job at 45. That means I lived 45 years without even knowing y'all, man. Y'all ain't gonna have that type of effect on my mental state and all of that. Kick rocks.
but yeah, but I don't think that's a lot of people's realities. I think a lot of people's reality is I gotta watch what I say and do. For myself and how I'm kind of perceived. Let's go to some comments here because so
Well, go back to Matt. Here goes Matt's up here.
all right. So Matt said somebody's always better at reading this than me because I can't
It's
see.
about privilege. It's called, I guess, I don't know if you say money
It's
privilege.
called money privilege.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know why race plays into it. Anyone else assaults anyone on national TV and is allowed to sit there and later accept an award is pretty much as privileged as it can get, black, white, or any color.
So Matt, the specific topic we were on is I think you and Charles were sharing the same opinion as far as the incident in like say in the media, so somebody smacked something, there was an action, and so it is what it is. Some people are going to look at it as just look at it as just something crazy that happened, and there's others who are going to play race and or put race into the mix of it. So, but what we were just mentioning is like say in the workplace, right, where um, for instance, like maybe at a job or a company. I mentioned my own experiences, like, and a lot of times I've been in environments where there are not a lot of blacks in particular, in a certain role or in a certain area. And I've worked in one where where one of the only one or the few. Um, and so, and even think about, think of friends of yours or people whatever, how much interaction they have with other, say, black people. If they're not, they can go, long, extended period of time without having any action. If you don't have close friends or whatever. So the person you run into is that person at work. And if that person, does something out of character or just whatever their behavior is, like they want to be in representative of what you see, kind of, it could be on a day-to-day basis, or it could be, something that happens once in a while. So, and that could be, I guess that can go both ways. It could be good and bad, right?
I was going to say that. And
it could be good and bad, or so he can be a fantastic person. So it kind of, that's your day-to-day interaction with that person. Maybe you start to develop a new, respect or something like that for them. But if they're like an asshole and, and you do some crazy things, and, but I think that's something that definitely happens. Right? I think it happens regularly, right? Because a lot of people, there's a lot of black people who don't have like close friends with other white people, in certain settings, and vice versa, right? So don't have friends or interactions with people daily that are black, Spanish, whatever. You can go from any nationality, same situation.
To Matthew's point though, primarily I agree with your point overall. I do want to say that, and I definitely understand, what privilege is, and yeah, maybe Will Smith being who he is, he was able to do some things that other people might not have been able to do.
Ain't no question.
But I want to definitely tell you that white privilege and any forms of black privilege is not the same. And I want to tell you that. I want everybody to understand that it's not the same. And so with that being said, that's my opinion. And with that being said, again, we wouldn't be talking about racism overall if we, as black or melanated people, weren't living in a racist society that still constantly shows up at our door. No matter if we try to, just be just regular folk, come out there, just, and engage with everybody, at some point in your life, you're going to be reminded of who you are in this society. So I don't use the N-word, divorced myself for that about 30-something years ago. But when people say it, that's a part of it. They're like, oh, no matter what, you're going to be reminded that you're, that word. And so if you believe it or not, at the end of the day, we're just trying, for most, I'm speaking for most black people that I know, they literally just want to be able to pay their bills, live their lives, and just be treated decently and fairly. Decently and fairly. What they don't want to be is pulled over, or a no-knock warrant goes out, and then they come up in the house and you legally can own the firearm and you lose your life. That's what they don't want. And I get it. It can happen across the board. Anybody can, certain things can happen, whatever. But I know for a fact that when I'm looking at that war we talked about a few weeks ago, and then they give billions and billions of dollars to different individuals overseas, but no one's having no discussions of reparations, that shiznit is based in racism. So even though it might not be, the hoods and robes and all that other stuff in your face, the construct as it was designed, it's still working. It is still working. And no matter how in my brain I try to imagine the utopia that other people might see, it's not a reality. And I'm saying that as a quote unquote educated black man, no felony convictions, taxpayer, don't matter. Don't matter. So I just wanted to just say that really quick.
Yeah, I basically definitely agree with what you just said. But I think, and to Matt's point too, I think I don't know if Will Smith got away because of black privilege, but definitely some money right there. Definitely, he got treated differently because of money
And that
than other people would have definitely. I don't think he got that because of black privilege. I think
Not at all.
maybe money.
Not at all. Not at all. I agree with you. 100% agree.
Hey, so this is one of the things we passed over really quick. Would it in Charles? I think Charles, you said it wouldn't make a difference, but and I heard this conversation. Would it have been more of an issue if it would have been a white person slapping that incident happened with a white versus a black person or vice versa, black against white? Like, would that have brought something else into it?
I mean, if it was over the same thing, I mean, first of all, a black man.
The topic was the same, so there was
Okay,
no
so
racial.
look, first of all, a black man smacked another black man, and it still turns into a race conversation. So that lets you know how deep racism is race is in America. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, yeah, but I think, of course, the black-white element of it would have been there, definitely. But I mean, so let's say a white dude did that because he made a joke about Chris Rock. I mean, Chris Rock made a joke about his wife. Do you think that the white dude would have smacked him because he was racist, or do you think he was smacking him because of the joke about his wife?
Right.
So it would have definitely been the racial component would have definitely hit the media full speed ahead running. But I mean, it's where you're gonna be at with it, because I mean, if I would have seen a white dude smack him, I would have felt the same thing. Like, yo, what are you like, why did he do that over that in that situation? It would have been the same question for me. Why did he behave in that manner? You know what I'm saying? But if he did that because he felt offended by the joke on his wife, though I may not agree that's how he should have acted, I wouldn't have immediately thought that the white dude did it because he was harboring racist views towards Chris Rock.
But there would have been a racial component to it.
Ain't no question. There's a racial component to this, and it was a black dude smacked another black dude. You know what I'm saying? The psyche.
Yeah, but it's different, right? I mean, it's different than it's a racial component in the sense of how how we're being looked at, kind of thing. So it's not a it's a different kind of.
Oh, it's a different way in which race is being looked at, but at the end of the day, it's still the psyche of the whole psychology of America. And like what Dad was saying, the whole foundation of it always gonna bring it always brings it to race. But that's what I'm saying. That's part of racial anxiety, not just for black people. Like you said, like you said, like racial anxiety for white people. Are they afraid to say something because they're gonna be looked at as racist? Racial anxiety for us in the sense of, did this happen to me because I was black? But that's the foundation of this country. So it's always gonna be tied into that type of element.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Okay. All right. So, all right. So anybody have anything? All right. So we had someone joining us in on the conversation today. Someone who's listened in a bunch. Stephen Capozola, and he was going to give his input from his perspective. And we're going to welcome him to the Facebook Live, to Real Chat. Hey, Stevie.
So Matt says that
Say again, Charles?
No, I said Matt thinks that it's turning into a race issue. This comment, do you agree with this? That it's turning into a race issue because black people are making it a race issue.
Well, before we tackle that, let's properly vet Steve up in here.
Yeah,
definitely tackle that.
Yeah, this is great to see you guys.
Hey,
It's been a lot of years. Isn't that cool?
Definitely.
And I remember, Charles, but Dev, what year were you at New Rochelle?
Oh man, I got there.
I mean, what we were class
97. 87 to 90.
So he's younger than us, right?
Yeah.
He's a young one. Good. All right.
Yeah, he likes reminding us.
Yeah,
a while as well. So
I'm 51. I'm 51. It blows my mind.
I'm 50, so I'm right behind you guys. You know, but I always remind
I'm
them.
35. I don't know about you. I'm 35.
35 when you're on your bike riding around, man.
That's right.
Yeah. I'm 50.
That's right.
Yeah, but welcome, man. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, no, thanks for joining in, Steve. Appreciate it.
I'm excited. But you know something, we're human, and at the base thing is the moment it said you're entering a studio and you know, I'm reading the thing and it's like I'm going to go into this live thing, even if it's one person watching. It's funny, I got a little nervous. It's like the basic, you know, like the basic human level. Like we all have that, you know. This is really cool.
Well, don't worry. If anything messes up, Charles does it all the time. You know.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
No, look, I haven't had audio problems or video problems in so long. I got that label up off me, man.
Yeah, but you got a few new ones since then. Yeah, you know. But sometimes I get a little nervous too, to be honest with you, Steve, when we're going live.
We're always rushing to a time schedule. We chat a little bit before and after. So, but let's get your take on anything. So, do you need any specific questions? You had any thoughts?
Oh, I have lots to say based on when you and I were emailing,
mm-hmm.
And it's funny, just the fact that, you know, the internet never forgets, and a conversation on race, just the mere idea of doing this, like don't we open ourselves up to some misstep or say something wrong?
Absolutely.
It's out there.
Absolutely.
And we're in that time where the slightest thing people say by mistake, and then there's, you know, race is perceived in it and they're canceled, and that's so scary.
Right.
Over world, no less if you're famous. So to wrap up or to go back to the Chris Rock thing, a quick thing I want to say at Will Smith is I've read coverage of it where they say, oh, this perpetuates a stereotype of violent black men. I didn't think that at all. I don't know where they got that. I just saw like it's Will Smith. He's this super famous, super rich guy. That's what I thought. And actually, haven't you guys, does this ever happen where I've snapped and gotten into arguments with total strangers where my adrenaline goes through the roof and I could tear them apart. And I was so calm 3 minutes before.
Right.
And I just was watching Will Smith at that moment when you see him yelling from his seat. Yeah. And I was like, I know that thing where I snap and I lose it. I'm so angry. And it's hard to talk over.
I don't even know what the time. Charles and I were just talking about that the other day. I can't remember exactly what the point was, but I think I mentioned about how, like, even in road rage situations or something like that, you know, somebody could really, like, I remember one time somebody got ticked off that they mentioned that I cut him off, and this guy speeds ahead. So, and the first instinct is trying to cut me off the road. And my first thought was like, let me take off after him too. And then I was like, wait a minute. I said, let me slow down. Like, what am I doing? You know, and I had to catch myself. And you know, that's what
I've done it.
Yeah.
I had someone follow me, a white guy and his wife, but the wife was trying to calm him down. Yo, he followed me. I thought he was on like medication. Yo, he followed me to like my like parking thing. And he was like, he was telling me that I was driving too fast on the complex. So we both lived on the same complex. And I pulled into my spot. He was following me. He was telling me, yo, you need to slow down. Because you know what I did? He was driving so slow, I went around him. And it bothered him that I went around him. So I didn't really go around him fast. It was that I went around. He followed me to the spot and was like trying to chastise me. And I was like, yo, man, you was going too slow. I went around you. Big deal. You know, you go home, like, basically, right? And yo, he kept going on. So I was like, yo, get the fuck out of here. You know what I'm saying? Yo, and he called the cops. And you know what he did? He said, yo, it's a black guy. He used race and tried to make it seem like I didn't live there. He was like, yo, it's like a black guy speeding around on his complex. Like it was his and not mine also. Yeah, it was a white dude. But the wife was trying to calm him down, like, chill. She started explaining him for me. He actually got in his thing, but she was like, yo, boom. And she was, you know, trying to like basically apologize for him. And to the point, like, I felt scared for her. I was like, yo, you all right in that house, man? Like, is he, you know? And she was like, no, but sometimes with, you know, he just gets so, you know what I'm saying? Like, I thought like he may even be beating her up. He was like bugging, you know what I mean? But he didn't approach me. He didn't like threaten to do nothing to me, but he just felt like he was going to tell me about myself for doing that. You know what I mean? And it was just crazy.
this is a good side note because amidst all the racial angles of things going on, people are also just pissed off, cranky, tired, budgets are tight. And I know, and I hope I never do it again, but it happens every 3 days or 7 months. I get into it with a stranger from, I'm walking my dog and they, say something and something snaps in me. So it's interesting to observe this because that goes on in America, aside from the race conversation, which, by the way, Mike, when you and I were emailing, it gave me a bunch of thoughts of stuff we can dive into, like woke culture and cancel culture. And the thing you guys posted on Facebook, the second question in the intro to this whole episode, you wrote something like, do white people worry about being labeled racist or prejudiced?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, hell yeah, that's absolutely goes on now. Imagine, so this is a great thing to throw at you guys, is are some white people extra nice if they see someone black and they're not themselves? Are they being phony? They're like, oh, I don't want to get accused of anything. I don't want to, that goes on too. And I have an example I want to cite on that, but first let me ask you guys, like, that goes on. Thoughts on that? That some people, white people, are super afraid of misstepping at all.
Oh, the act like kind of being overly nice just to try to overly kind of compensate for like the.
So they're not perceived a certain way.
Yeah, exactly. Not perceived, or like, I hope I don't misstep. And one other thing is, we're in the super internet age where everyone has a phone and would film the slightest thing. If you misspeak at a store or do something. But
I have one comment. Okay, so. Oh man, this is interesting actually. All right, so this is actually a good, interesting race related conversation. So I think as black males, there's always that typical kind of stereotype of the black guy walking down the street and there's someone on the other side of the street. It could be a male or female, but they kind of maybe. Your impression may be they crossed the street to kind of avoid you, but the female they grabbed onto their purse a little tighter or something like that, and that can be an ongoing kind of stereotype of way of looking at the situation. So that's something I think is constantly in some people's heads. So it becomes sometimes I think it is kind of surprising because you can pass people on the street and they can just kind of have tunnel vision and look a certain way or whatever. But I find it surprising, especially surprising when you run into somebody in just a casual environment, and say it's a white female or something like that, and then they are like that. They're like, oh, hi, how you doing? Like, have a good evening or something like that, and kind of very talkative. And if that happens with me, I'm usually taken back a little bit because it's not something that usually happens. Like, if you're on just if it's something very short and passing, someone, any regular person, especially in New York, they may just have their own tunnel vision and do their own thing. But if somebody is especially friendly and they happen to be a white and or female at the same time, then yeah, it comes across as like odd. You're like, wait, like, whoa, is that the case with either you guys or what? No, yes, maybe.
What, like, are you taken aback if a white person you perceive them to be extra nice?
Like, I'm probably specifying like a situation where, so it's not somebody you've known or something like that.
No.
If it's like a casual thing or something like just in passing.
Maybe you're in line at, and I don't drink coffee, I don't do Starbucks, but you're in line at Starbucks, and
right, something.
A white woman ahead of you or behind you, and she bumps into you, and she's, oh, I'm so sorry, or wants to make sure, no offense, or.
Yeah.
I think that's probably more individualized. Like, well, for me personally, I don't look at that from a collective. I look at it maybe as an individualized thing because, everywhere I go, I always end up in a conversation with people. You know what I'm saying? So, like, I just was in Florida with my granddaughters. I sat by the pool little area while they was playing around for about an hour talking to, I still remember his name. He was a white guy, originally from Ohio, moved to South Carolina. Now works at a diesel factory in Tennessee named Kevin. And he was down there. He started telling me about his niece and them wedding and how his niece was a thing and the people he met from New York, that he's never been through New York. But we was talking for like an hour, man, maybe an hour and 15 minutes until he left. And I didn't think, like, no part of me felt like he was trying to compensate and be nice. Like, he didn't even have to sit there. He could have just swam off or whatever. I didn't I didn't get that. But there are situations where I do think that. But me personally, it's individualized to how I to the action of the person, not the action of a race. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I want to comment to that also. First thing, Steve, I don't drink coffee neither.
Right on.
Had a
I'm hyper enough. Seriously,
Yeah,
I just never.
and I also had a teacher that had really bad breath in the second grade, and I think he messed it up for me as far as coffee forever, man. This dude used to sit up there. That's when they used to smoke in the building. I mean, they had the teachers' lounge. You walk by, it was like a
Yes.
right. You know, his breath is just horrible, man. So I think it just messed me up. But going back to your question, me personally, I don't ever feel with the people I talk to. I sort of feel like Charles. I mean, just today I was in Home Depot, and there was a white woman from upstate New York named Sue. And we had the best conversation in the world. And we talked for 20, maybe 15, 20 minutes. I'm asking about different things. Best conversation in the world. But I didn't feel, I know that's one scenario, but most of the people that I come in contact with, I don't personally feel like that angle that you spoke about. So it doesn't mean it doesn't happen. But now what I will say is there have been situations, because I'm in North Carolina. I'm from New Rochelle, but I'm in North Carolina. So, you know, the dynamic is different out here. But there definitely have been situations that I've been in where if that individual who was white did say something like, yo, I'm not racist, it's because whatever happened in that engagement, there was something that was either perceived as racist or something they thought they said was racist. And mainly on the basketball courts out here, because we've been in some wars out there just playing the game. And I just remember one situation in particular, it got real deep, but nobody even said anything about race. But I think what he was saying, he probably thought that what he said was offensive. And everybody was like, dude, you didn't say nothing wrong, like we good. You know what I mean? So in his brain, whatever it was that he was thinking.
Well, that's that racial anxiety we're talking about.
Yep.
Yeah, it is. In that situation in particular, because originally I was sort of just complimenting what Charles said, because 95% of my conversations it's just people being people. And I'm all for people being people. Like, you know, I've made it clear on this platform a million times. Like, I'm for people. But nevertheless, because of my experiences that I didn't bring on myself, but that this world has brought to me, I look at it through a polarized lens, and I definitely see the racial things that happen, and I'm not going to be quiet about it. You know, there's a lot of people who are like, nah, they don't want, as they say, they don't want the smoke. I don't want the smoke neither, but nevertheless, I'm not going to be quiet about it. If you do something that I think is racist or you know, we're going to have an issue. You know what I mean? No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Because if we all get quiet, in my opinion, it's only going to get worse. And what you said earlier, Steve, when you said, like, when we come on here, we know that this thing lives forever. It's true. You know, and I went back to some of the shows that we've done. I'm like, oh my gosh, what made me say that? You know, but what made me say it was I'm having a conversation, and I'm having a conversation at that time, in that moment, with two other black men. And ultimately, if you come to the barbershop, or if you come to the park, you know, or if you're around black people enough, you hear a lot of things that you don't think black people say or think. I mean, there's a lot of things that I think if I'm not going to say like white people who live in the hood, because I grew up around white people or Caucasian people that lived with us, and they understood everything because they were right there. They were immersed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So they were a part of our journey, part of their journey. So they understood certain things and certain things that you do and don't say, even down to the body language.
Right.
There's body language that we use in those situations and environments that's nonverbal, but it's telling you a whole bunch. Now, how does that play out with our perceptions, black men's perception? Let me speak as a melanated or a black man. And let me tell you, Steve, why I say black or melanated, because you've been on this show. I've seen you with us.
I've commented, right? Yeah. I've commented.
Well, the reason I say black or melanated is because the same way we went from Negro to black in the 60s, because at one time we were just defined as Negro. You know, if they wrote a newspaper article, they would say a Negro man was, you know, or the Negroes were. But there was a time period where our elders and ancestors was like, yo, we're not Negroes. And they started to identify with black. And then culturally it became a shift. And it was also part of that Black Power movement that happened in the 60s. So now what's happening is you have some people that are saying, we're not Black. You know, when you look in the sky, you don't see this, you don't see that. And just for Black people, I say Black and melanated. I'm not saying Black and melanated basically for anybody else in the world. I'm saying it for the different individuals now that are going through this change and this shift as far as how we identify ourselves in this world. So I just wanted to say that because sometimes people, why is he saying Black and melanated? And I'm like, because right now there's some people who will not identify as Black, just like there's some people who are Black that don't feel as though all Black people should get reparations. I mean, it's a whole different discussion. You see my point? So there's things that we're dealing with communally, and then when we come on here, it's for the world to see. You know, but I know from my personal existence, you know, my whole thing is like, people that know me, they know me. So if you ask any of the people that are white that know me, they'll say, oh, Dev, yo, that's Dev. You know what I mean? I don't, every time I'm around a white guy, I'm like, hey, Steve, you're a white guy, so we got to have this conversation from a white and Black perspective. Nah, man, who won the game? You know what I mean? Like, so, I mean, how's your day going? You know what I mean? How are you? The only thing that, and I'm going to shut up on this last thing. I know that when these videos stay 60 or 100 years from now, if somebody pulls it up, the one thing that they're going to be able to see is consistency and conviction.
Yeah.
Consistency and conviction. Mike has been Mike from day one. Charles has been Charles from day one. Dev has been Dev from day one. And I was the same way in high school. I was no different. Black Culture Club and Walter Brown. You remember Walter Brown, right?
Yeah.
These were all my first teachers. I just kept studying. And you just see it for what it is. Love is love, hate is hate. And as long as you're not on no racist stuff where you just outwardly racist, you know, outwardly, oh, you know, and because that's a whole nother discussion, we'll probably be all right. I'm dealing with the things in my head as far as the way I perceive white people, the way I perceive Asian people, the way I perceive other Black people.
Right.
You see my point? Like it's not like we're not thinking. Like we're a thinking people. So I said a lot, but I don't know. Just wanted to chime in.
Well, I have a thought of something to describe to you that might be good discussion wise. I do see someone asked a question. I don't know. I wouldn't want to jump that if you guys want to take her question.
We definitely got two questions that we're gonna have to get to. So Matt and Allison will definitely come back to you. But go ahead, man. Shoot.
So I thought of a good thing, and I based this partly on Mike and I emailed a bit since the last show, and I was so impressed, guys, with everything you were saying last week and all. But going to political correctness and woke culture, let me describe something to you and get your take on this. This might be a really good launching point. So Candace Owens, whom I think you guys know, so she's a conservative. So she was doing, I think, and I just found this, you know, you can watch stuff on YouTube and then just gives you a bunch of, you know, you can go down the rabbit hole and find this video and watch that. And then in the right column, you see this video. And I was just streaming around one day. So this was a clip of, she was doing a tour of colleges with Dave Rubin, who does a podcast or something. And I don't do podcasts, but I know he's something like the Rubin Report. So the gist is they were going to college campuses and doing a thing about the importance of free speech and should speech be limited and, you know, hate speech. And their point was essentially, I think they were coming to each campus and saying, we think you have to have open dialogue and free speech and et cetera. So Candace is obviously a conservative and isn't liked on a typical campus because colleges, let's say, are very liberal. So here's what I'm getting to is they were trying to do a discussion of we need debate, we need open dialogue to discuss things. And various times kids in the audience would stand up and just start yelling Black Lives Matter. And they would do it over and over really loudly to drown out Dave and Candace. And Dave would say, guys, I get it. You know, we're on your side. Just if you stop, I can answer that question or I can. So here's what struck me is at one point and so this is, I don't know a campus, but I'm sure all of the kids in that audience, and I would say it was, you know, what, 70% white, 30% Black. I'm just guessing from a quick look at, you know, when they would show the crowd. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure all the kids in that audience were very good-hearted, anti-racism, absolutely believe Black Lives Matter. There's no one there who was who's a racist, who just it's a modern college campus. Would anyone be going to that? And so the point is, at one point when they were talking, a white guy and a white girl stand up and start going, Black Lives Matter. And they must have said it 70 times in a row. And my thought is, they're preaching to the choir. No one there disagrees. Candace Owens doesn't disagree. Dave Rubin doesn't. But what are they trying to prove? And I thought, we know there's right over their shoulder, you see there was two black girls sitting there. And I was thinking, what are they thinking? Are they thinking, oh my goodness, I'm so glad that these people are saying Black Lives Matter, keep fighting for me? Or were they weirded out? Because what was driving these kids to, the bottom line is, they're proving I'm with the cause. Now I'm talking about the two kids who stood up and said Black Lives Matter over and over. They're trying to show, look, I'm not a racist, I'm with the cause. But I kind of was, so I want to ask you guys, I was kind of weirded out by those kids thinking there's a little something, I couldn't put my finger on it, but there's something strange, like that they don't have to be doing that. They're not convincing anyone. Who are they trying to assuage? What? So I've kind of described this roughly, but it's like it's white guilt on the offensive is what I would call it. So does that give you a little?
The two who started, you said, were having to be white, or they were both white, or one?
I said, yeah, the guy and the woman that's the guy and the girl stood up.
Black Lives Matter. They were white.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I think you said that. Well, was it some type of white guilt on their part? I don't know, but what I will say is I'm not sure that everybody on that campus believes that Candace Owen believes that Black Lives Matter. You know what I'm saying? So I don't think like in the comments you said that, everybody knows this, Candace Owens know this, the guy Rubin knows this. So I don't think that people would actually be in agreement with that statement that you made right there. You know what I'm saying? As far as that people know that these people know that Black Lives Matter.
Oh.
You see what I'm saying? So you're looking at it from that perspective. You see, but this shows you like how the different perspective, like you're looking at it like, okay, like, man, Black Lives Matter. So everybody in the room knows this. So what is this about? But I'm looking at it like, I'm not really sure if everybody in the room knows this. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So you right there, you automatically see the difference, because I don't disagree totally with conservative views. I think all of us, which is so funny because I think we all exist between both realms of conservatism, liberalism, capitalism and socialism. All of the things we argue about, our country literally exists in all of it. We have capitalism, we have socialism. It's normally a matter of who's benefiting from it that causes the problem, but the actual systems are in play in America. And so that would be the first thing. I don't know. So I don't know if they were shouting her down or shouting them down out of white guilt, or is it that they were shouting her down because it's like, yo, you need to hear this, because some of the stuff I hear coming out of your mouth, I don't even know, to Tracy's point, are you a black woman? And so it's a lot of times it's not just her conservative views. It's also her views on, like this is a girl like will get up there and say that racism doesn't exist, even though she sued her school in Boston for racism and actually won a lawsuit. So it's like kind of hard to take you seriously and really think that you represent me just because of your skin color, when you're telling me that what I'm experiencing isn't real, but yet you actually sued over the racism. You sued the school district over racism, the very thing you're telling me that ain't even real to me. You're on a college campus, gonna promote this narrative about, oh, there's no racism, look at all, and it's like, well, so the only racism happened to you in that one school, you know what I'm saying? So I don't think it was white guilt more than that they kind of distrust Candace Owens' authenticity as a person. That's my personal perspective. Not seen the video and not knowing the people who were doing it.
And by the way, this is just one little thing I stumbled across, and I don't know much about Candace. I don't follow pundits or whatever, you know. So it's not like I know her much, but just it struck me. But I don't want to step on you guys if you have a response. But I have other scenarios that I was thinking of along these lines. But I don't know if you guys.
I just had a quick comment. Oh, sorry. Who's speaking?
I was asking, did you have a comment to what you just said?
Just a quick comment. I mean, I've listened to her like a number of times as well, and the thing is, and the reality is too, she's you can tell, she's an intelligent person, right? Who has strong views. Some veer, completely one way, and some veer completely the other way. And I think in that situation, I think it's very much kind of what Charles said, like the kind of chant that she got hit with as soon as she came there. People basically heard one of her speeches that they felt what I can say took away the validation of anything she had to say. So they just wanted her to keep on moving along, basically. So they didn't, so instead of having a conversation with her to kind of, have that back and forth exchange, they just muted her out. And, and I've seen, and that actually happens like in a few different situations of, with that, whenever she gets interviews or something like that, people just try to overtalk her and shut her down and, whatever. And she receives that backlash regularly.
But just think of the psychology of it, that you're yelling to a black person that Black Lives Matter.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
That,
yeah, like a white. Like, I'm white trying to tell it to you. So imagine what that perception of her is, that as a white person, I don't even think you as a black person think Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So think about the psychology.
Yeah, because people figure everything that she said kind of is so contradictory to exactly that. So I figure like,
like,
she needs
I'm
to
not even showing you black. You know what I'm saying?
And Steve, just to really jump off what Charles just said, she's like a prime example for somebody like me that she doesn't represent us. She does not represent black people. She doesn't speak for us. The things that has come out of her mouth are dangerous. That's just my humble opinion. I don't pay too much attention to her because I think personally she's an agent, and I mean that literally. I think that she gets money to do the damage that she does. That's just what I believe. Her actions have shown that she's really in alignment with something that's not going to help us overall. And, when we're talking about Black Lives Matter, I mean, there's a lot of questions right now to even the founders of that organization. So if they were involved with things that might or might not be ethical, whatever. And so we're still at this point where the slogan itself, Black Lives Matter, there's a lot of truth to it. But again, we can't even overall bask in that movement the way we should collectively, because there's more turmoil. So how does that tie back to the white people that was out there, Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter? Historically, going all the way back to the Quakers, going all the way back to the first Reconstruction, there have always been white allies with black people in these movements. But what we've learned since then is there's also been these individuals that are sent, and they come sometimes, and you'll think that they with the movement, but ultimately they're there to disrupt the movement, and that's black and white. So for everything that we experience collectively, some of us are going to look at it differently because history has shown us, like, yo, you got to be real careful on how you vet or how you let people speak for you or speak for the people. Now, if somebody from their heart has an epiphany and they're like, yo, this is wrong, and I don't care if they're white, Asian, Latino, I don't care, and they come out and they're like, yo, this is wrong, and they're walking with the people, that's in the spirit of that's in the spirit of change, and that's beautiful. But what we also keep finding 40 and 50 years after the fact is when somebody like Malcolm X was murdered, I mean, he had an agent that was working with him and working for the government right there with him. It was always this thing for us where we wanna just have this all-encompassing world. but it can be costly collectively. So it doesn't mean that we shouldn't. It doesn't mean that we can't bask in the small victories. But overall, there hasn't been that big, huge victory for Black people in this country, and it hasn't happened through reparations. It hasn't happened in Congress. So it's like we keep getting these little crumbs, and we're just supposed to be happy with it. And ultimately, in theory, I'm hoping that enough people, not just Black people, don't matter if you're white, don't matter if you're Latino, it doesn't matter if you're Asian, it doesn't matter, your sexual preference, none of that, just finally starts to move. And this is all utopian thinking because it's not going to happen. We talk soon. In what's best for all people, but it has not happened for us in this country. It just hasn't happened. I don't think that what they was doing was wrong. They probably really felt that way. To Charles's point, they knew that Candace Owens, for all intents and purposes, she's a devil in my opinion, and I mean that literally. She's a physical portrayal of a devilish enemy, energy. Excuse me. So to me, she's dangerous.
So funny that I brought her up because I have it's someone I don't follow. It was more for the anecdote of these kids shouting this, but it's funny we spent so much time on her because I know
that's a good thing though, because we're conversating and we're learning from one another. And if you didn't bring it up, we wouldn't even be able to assess it.
Yeah, right.
And I'm glad you did. We never talk about her because she's a non-factor in a lot of our opinions. But even though you don't follow it, you brought it up, and our perspective is we're learning from you in that light because you've seen it a completely different way. And I think Lumar up here wrote, where is it? She wrote something about she gets weirded out when she sees those things also. But I'm on it like, it just depends. They might have came specifically to let her know we know who you are. We got to say it 1,000 times. We're gonna disrupt your audience so you know that we know who you are. Yeah. So Candace Owens.
What's cool, Deb? You said a while ago in this conversation, it's so true. We all grew up in New Rochelle. Mm-hmm. And by the way, my mom is still in New Rochelle. She's 81. How do you guys have parents who are still alive and in New Rochelle or anything?
I have family members, but you have family. I'm gonna put it up there. Somebody asked you a question. Who else got family members there still? I got plenty of family members. But
my mom is still in New Rochelle and she's 81. God bless her.
Bless her, yes.
Yes. But I thought I have another something along those lines that always struck me is Deb, are you looking something up? I don't want to step.
No, I can hear everything you're saying. Right. So, people always ask me what I'm doing. I got 2 screens in front of me and I'm reading comments and trying to do everything, But
he's keeping up more with the message.
There was a question asked for you while you're talking, Steve. So I'm gonna put it up on the screen so you can go ahead. I'm listening.
It's such a bummer. You guys all look younger than me. The same age.
This was man.
Yes, my mom taught at Mayflower. God bless.
Yeah. Someone put that
up.
Oh, really? Okay.
Check it out. My parents met at Mayflower. They were teaching there.
Yeah.
I think my dad hit a softball through my mom's classroom window and went to apologize, and and then that's how they met.
And now there's Steven.
and my brother Michael.
Okay.
Yeah, my brother was no longer there, right? They tore it down ages ago, right?
Yeah. So,
Iona, right?
I went to Iona, but my dad and mom taught at Mayflower. Mayflower is now, Iona. That's right. Yeah. So I did my first 2 years at Tufts in Boston, which was really expensive, and I didn't like it. And I was on work study, and I would be driving till I drove my work study. You get assigned a work study job, and mine was pretty cool actually. I drove the campus safety shuttle, and I was doing it till like 2 a.m. and then getting up for class. But so Tufts was very expensive. And a lot of wealthy kids and a lot of snootiness, and I didn't like it. But this was where political correctness was starting. And something that struck me, I'll never forget this, is my freshman year, I went to, and I left after 2 years, and I went to Iona, which I loved. But my freshman year, there was a debate on affirmative action. And so obviously it was, I guess, I'm trying to remember, obviously, let's say it was a black professor and a white professor or whatever. But interestingly, there was a kid in the room who kept just blasting. You know, he was white, and he was just over the top blasting any criticism of affirmative action and just going on and on about the injustices done to Black America. And I remember, like, something about it struck me as weird. Like, he was so over the top. And my point is, it was, and there's more, I bring it up for a reason about this kid, but it's what I call, it's like white guilt on the offensive. But it turns out that guy, the year before I went to school there, had been in this, there was all this news where he had been attacked late at night on the upper quad or whatever, and either been called an N lover or it was written on him. And he was beaten up. He said a bunch of white kids beat him up because he was an N lover, and they like wrote that on him or they beat him up or something. And
this was something that happened in the show, you saying?
No, at Tufts the year before.
Okay.
But then it turned out he had totally made it up.
Oh.
And he's white, by the way, and he's a rich white kid from the South. I remember, and I'm Italian and Jewish, and I just remember he was hearing, oh, he's this rich Jewish kid from Georgia. And so this, maybe I took a long way to describe. Oh wow, Calvin said that was my dad was his 6th grade teacher. Let's address that.
Your mother was his 6th grade teacher. Wait, he was my 6th grade. Oh, that was your father. He said,
yeah. And so I don't want to duck that. That's so cool because my dad passed away in 2010. So anything that connects me to him, that's nice. But here's what I want to. But let me stay on this just because I went on this long story. So you have a rich white kid who fakes a crime saying he was attacked for being an N lover. I forget if it was like they wrote it on him, but it's all made up. So how does that strike you guys? That guy obviously is so trying to show that he's anti-racism or for the Black cause, but there's something that struck me strange about all that. So is this a helpful, maybe extreme example, but something to provoke conversation? To bring that up?
Well, I mean, faking racial crimes is, that's not helpful. That
they said it was white guys who did this.
Yeah. I mean, but it was basically racially motivated. It's white guys doing something to a white guy because they feel he has a certain affinity towards Black people. So that's still basically racially motivated.
It never happened. He made the whole thing up. Yeah,
but that's what I'm saying. So I don't think that helps at all. It actually creates a certain type of tension, and I think it takes away from things like that. I mean, you don't have to do that. Why he acted that way, I don't know what he may have saw in Georgia. I'm sure he probably saw some heavy racism in Georgia. You know what I'm saying? Especially more overt. Why it affected him this way? Why did he get so behind it? It's kind of hard to, I don't know.
What that kind of makes me think about is, like, say somebody like an Al Sharpton's perception on how he was looked at throughout the old 80s and 90s. And kind of starting with like the Tawana Brawley case.
I remember Tawana Brawley,
like the 80s something, right? Mm-hmm. So there was that incident that she was evidently supposedly attacked by I don't know. I think she said it was white other kids or something at the time, and raped and whatever else. And then it was said that it was all made up, and but the whole stigma that Al Sharpton has always had on him is that he fought for these cases that a lot of people thought were all BS. You know what I mean? And he that was essentially that's. I was going to say it was kind of his kind of view across the board, but I think it existed in the Black community as well as in the white community. It says, he's a charlatan. But I think a lot of the Black community, in a sense, if they did think that, they probably excuse that as well, because it says, look, if it wasn't this situation, something else happened that he's still rallying, everybody together for us. So there's probably a degree of that. I don't know if that's, that's just my thought at the moment. But yeah, so he was, so I think to Stephen's point, because he said to you, is it helpful or something like that? I think that's the same way that whole situation has always been perceived. Like, okay, if we have an incident that we can kind of put the camera on and focus on it, then it'll kind of help our whole rally movement kind of thing. And I think that's similar. So in the long run, it's going to do more harm than good. If it's not just the truth overall, but I think that's what he was accused for years. Which I must say, I'm very surprised within the last 10 or 15 years, like whatever deals he's worked out with CNN or CNBC, whoever it's out, like that whole image of his has kind of been, I don't want to say it's going to completely dissipated, but it's changed. I'm sure people who've known him for years still look at him the same way or whatever. But his media presence has changed.
Yeah, he's like an elder statesman now.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely it's.
And then I mean, once you after a while, it's like, was his defense of her an honest? I mean, ultimately he was defending a lie, so that was a mistake. But was it a mistake because you actually believed the person, or was it a mistake because you were part of some conspiratorial thing to create a race situation?
The way that he was looked at is essentially he was somebody who really didn't care whether it was true or not. He was going to use that cause for a reason to, to fight the cause, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Use anything and not look into it too deeply and use it as an excuse, kind of thing. So I mean, I think that's what some or many or however, that's what some people would say, to this point.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, I think that speaks along the same lines of that. But nothing.
But now back to that question though. Go ahead if you got something.
Oh no, that's it.
Are these helpful? I just so I know, is this helpful? I was trying to think of maybe extreme examples or quirky examples of the weird corners of race, and I'm just trying to.
I think it is because I think because there are people like him. There are people who say, "Hey, Al Sharpton doesn't speak for me." They may be embarrassed by what he does. And
for the record, there are a lot of. I think after the civil rights era, I think the media and white, like I said, white media as it's called. I think they've kind of tried to some degree, tell us who our leaders are, so there are many black people, for whatever reason, that don't agree with Al Sharpton, that don't like him, so he's not this leader. He's not like someone like how a Malcolm X or a Martin Luther King that people rally behind in a way that maybe he might be portrayed in the media like he's speaking for the voice of black people, but I don't think black people would even think to name him as a voice of the black community. Not at all.
But I don't think that's a perception. I think the perception would be different just because he's in the media and he's always been vocal, I guess, in a sense.
Yeah, but I don't think black people look at him as the leader of the black people. How they looked at a Malcolm X or a Martin Luther King, not at all.
Yeah, no.
I think it's
like I said. I mean, some people look at him like a charlatan, or some people, Well,
I want to, before we double back to those questions that Matthew asked and I believe Allison asked, I do want to say this. Personally, I don't think anything on that level that's deceitful is going to be helpful.
You're talking about the college campus kid story.
Yeah, college campus, and and then when not Charles, I think Mike. Which one of you guys brought up to want to ball?
Me.
Yeah. It's not helpful. Susan Lee Smith. It's not helpful. I mean, it's horrible, actually. You know what I mean? If somebody uses something with a racial component to hide a murder or to try to promote, it's not going to help. But I think this was Matthew's question. If not, you guys correct me.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody want to tackle that?
He is referencing you guys saw was it Kareem Abdul-Jabbar had a whole thing? It was on Facebook. He sort of saying, he was someone who was saying the SMAC did a great disservice to this and this and this. So I mean, maybe that goes to what Matthew's saying.
Well, I think that's exactly what Charles said as well. I mean, Matt, he said it's amazing because it's an issue that happened amongst two black people and it became a racial topic. I think that's exactly what Charles said.
Yeah, but then so that was Matt's response is that, but it's only becoming a racial topic because of black people making it, not that white people are making it about race. I mean, that's
Right.
what
No,
he
I
actually
agree
wrote.
with that. I agree with that too. But I don't think it's a so it is a racial topic, but not racial as in something
Not like a
racist
racist
has
topic.
happened. It's a thing as in so it's only a racial topic because of the topic of what we're talking about today, racial anxiety, because of
Exactly.
how blacks in particular feel that they are viewed. So that's what makes it a racial topic. So yes, I agree. I agree with you, Matthew, on that completely. But that's what it is. It's a racial discussion, but not a racist like topic or prejudice. Well, no, not even really a prejudice. It's a way of it's kind of like a being self conscious about how you're being perceived. So that's the conversation that's within the black community on this. And you're right. I don't think as Charles said, and I think several said. I think Stephen may have said as well. Like majority of people who saw it, they looked at this was just an absurd thing that happened. It's like someone. And there's nothing with race having to do with it other than.
And that's what I think sparked that question to Stephen. I think Allison had said about like what is he like when you had said like it turned into this stereotypical like you didn't even know where this came from, like about like this black on black violence, stereotypical like angry black man, so to speak, right? And so somewhere in there, I think she had asked the question like, because you made something okay here, yeah, you said that you didn't know where that stereotype comes from, so she was trying to get a clarification on what exactly did you mean by you didn't understand where that stereotype came from.
I didn't even you know what I was it seemed like, to be
Yeah,
honest.
no, that's right. Hold on, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I'm answering Allison instead of typing it back. No, Allison, I understood that you were asking Steve. That's why we put this question back up for him.
I actually thought when I started to see articles on the whole Will Smith thing, it seemed to me like these like media intellectuals over analyzing it when they were saying, "Oh, this perpetuates the stereotype of the angry black man." And I was like, "Where do they get that from? What? This is just Hollywood people." I didn't even. Yeah. I don't think people see it that way. I will say this, which I thought was unhelpful and stupid, is I saw it on like Facebook. You always see people post little clips. And is it Janine Pirro? Is that her name? Like Judge Janine or something? Like someone was posting that her comment. They asked her, "What do you think of the Will Smith, Chris Rock thing?" And she's like, "This isn't the hood." Now that's insulting and stupid.
Yeah.
So maybe that.
Well, and then think about the fact that so now when you feel her comment was stupid and there was a tone of or undertone of racism there, right?
And I'm Italian, so like that to me, like that pisses me off when I see the.
But now think about this, though, right?
What's that?
So now let me tell you this.
Mike is.
So
wait
now,
for the record, you and Charles both.
Yeah. No, my.
Oh
what?
yeah,
for
right.
The record, what?
Yeah, the Italian.
For the record, what? Oh, the Italian part of the background.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
But you know what's crazy is Janine Pirro and Dev talks to this a lot, like even like not just on the show, but out and when we talk about police gangs and different things like that, Janine Pirro now can freely come out and say this ain't the hood, right? Like that they only smack people in the hood. And only black people. There's a lot of undertones there that you can try to decipher through. But here's the crazy thing. That lady was once the district attorney for Westchester County, prosecuting black people.
Right. I remember that name.
Yeah. So now when and her husband, think about this though. So now you have a lady who's basically a tabloid judge.
Right.
Who was the district attorney of Westchester County deciding what cases and who gets prosecuted and how they get charged, that has these opinions that she can freely share now as she hit him when she was district attorney. And her husband was convicted on tax charges and sent to prison and on tax returns, that she also signed her name on.
Yeah.
But she was not convicted. I would like to see me sign a fraudulent tax return and only one of us get convicted and not both people because Oh, I didn't know. So you accept from the highest ranking law officer in Westchester County that I just didn't know? Like, wow. Like, it's literally your job to know the law. You know
Didn't
what I'm saying?
supposedly didn't she
Oh,
wiretap his stuff?
excuse me?
Didn't she supposedly like wiretap his stuff or something like that when they were going through whatever they were going through?
Yeah, with her husband.
Her old husband's stuff and it leaked out.
What do you think? I don't know if I'm jumping away from this, but what do you think of when I did see analysis and it's like, oh, that perpetuates the this and that, the violence stereotype? I just have no patience for that kind of super intellectual analysis anyway, because it doesn't strike me as the real world. Just and let me try and say that better.
Who was saying it again? Was it who was saying?
I mean, I think one of these was I know it was someone like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I think had a thing that people post stuff on Facebook.
I thought it was.
You read what he wrote and you didn't agree with it.
I'm trying to think if it was him but you just would see these. Oh, it perpetuates this stereotype, and I just think those things are high up intellectual. Like, who has time to? I don't know.
I'm asking you, was Kareem somebody that you sort of had issue with what he wrote?
No, Kareem. It was Kareem wrote that. I think was it him?
Well, he definitely wrote. I didn't finish it. I mean, I got it.
It was something like he did an injustice to this and this. I'm not knocking him. That's his view. Good for him. But it just seemed like I saw a lot of one sentence Twitter things. Are like, oh, this is the, and it never struck me that way. It just seemed, so like these.
But you know why it probably didn't strike you that way? Steve, just being honest, it wasn't for you.
What's that?
It wasn't for you.
What wasn't?
Whatever he wrote.
Oh.
However you perceived it, it wasn't for you. And I'm shooting straight with you. I keep saying, and I'm gonna say it now. We as Black people, there's conversations that we have to have. But those conversations really have nothing to do with you. Literally. And it's not a bad thing as far as white people, nothing like that. It's literally there's work that we need to be doing. And the only way that we can actually converse now to millions and millions of people is through social media. So now certain things and issues that you might not never have to deal with. And you said I'm Italian and I'm Jewish. So at the end of the day, I lived with an Italian family many years ago. And as far as man, I'm a pasta head to this day. I still, every other week, if not every week, I'll eat Italian. But the point I'm making is this. When I was there with that family, if there was a conversation that they needed to have as a family, literally, they'd be like, Benjamin, we're about to talk about da 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 da. And sometimes the children would have to go outside. And then sometimes I would have to go outside. So I don't think they were in there conversing like, oh, Benjamin, none of them was like that to me. But there was conversations that they had to have that I was not privy to. There's conversations that are being had that are really not for white people in any way, shape, or form. And it's not personal. Even though you can see the conversation, it's not for you. And I'm not, and mind you, I can't say that about the Kareem conversation because I haven't read it all to know.
Yeah, I hope I'm quoting it right, or it was that one.
No, a lot of people going back and forth on it, to be honest with you. I mean, I was seeing a lot. But I'm just saying this to say to you that, anytime, if you see a critique of Black people amongst Black people, and like when Matthew was saying, because Matthew said like last week or the week before, like, why am I making everything about race? And really what I wanted to say to Matthew is, it's like salt and pepper mixed. It would be nice for us to be able to just split them up where we can see the difference between the two. But nah, this stuff is all over, and it's hard to sort of separate my livelihood and my experiences and not look at it from the lens of which I've grown up with for the last 50 years. I didn't create this lens. I'm just living in this world and trying to make the best of it in that way. But the other thing I wanted to say was, as far as Janine Pirro, this is an interesting fun fact, just like the fun fact we just learned about, your mother and father and the baseball going through the window. And Calvin, that's my pops. That's one of my father figures. And at the end of the day, he knew your parents. Well, Janine Pirro and my grandmother used to work together in the Westchester courthouse. And when I was a little kid, I would be in the courtrooms with grandma with a little pad scribbling. And I remember Janine Pirro. But what's so gangster is when I got older, and to Charles's point, when he was like, oh, now we get to see everything that you was thinking back then, I was appalled by some of the stuff that I was seeing because even though I was a little kid and I don't know her like that, let me be clear, I was a little kid, okay? This was when my grandmother was at Mercy College and working in White Plains after she left New Rochelle, but she had to tag along with her everywhere. It wasn't no babysitter like that, she would pick me up.
Yeah.
And sometimes I would be with her in the court if I wasn't at the little daycare or whatever. But when they used to come around or we would go up there, everybody was nice to me. But think about it. I'm a little teeny kid, little baby, and my grandmother was a minority in that office. Literally. Wasn't a lot of black people in the office that I remember. Maybe they were, I don't remember them. But I remember all of the white people that was in the office, and Janine Pirro, that was all them. So to see the way she's carried herself, and I didn't know she made that statement about the hood and all this other stuff, it's almost like, let's just say hypothetically, all these years that I came to North Carolina, I never knew nothing more about Janine Pirro. For whatever rock I might have been under, I didn't know that she rose to the point where she's at. And all I have is like these decent memories as a child of these people. And then all of a sudden I hear, the statement that was made. It's like, well, damn, like, is there anybody on this earth that doesn't have some type of negative feelings towards one another, whatever? That's
I follow you. Yeah.
So I don't know. I wanted to rant for a little bit, but yeah.
So now,
Allison's other question, or that was
okay.
A question.
No. I think she wanted to understand, like, I think her question was like, what did he mean by he doesn't understand where these stereotypes was coming from? But from what I'm getting is, and I don't know, I don't really want to speak for you, but I think it's more of not a lack of understanding of how these stereotypes come, but more so of how did that type of stereo come to play in this incident?
Yeah.
Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah. I mean, I just saw it as like Will Smith's got a lot going on. It's funny. Two things. It was so helpful listening to you guys talk about this last week. It was such a release because I had so many thoughts on this. But what's my point? You guys were talking about this before I came on. Me seeing Will Smith get up and slap Chris Rock doesn't make me say, oh, black people are violent or whatever. No, it was Will Smith who's going through something or was pissed off and had reasons to be pissed off. I'm not saying right or wrong there, but like that's it wasn't a nice thing Chris Rock said. I can see why it provoked him, but I didn't see race there. And isn't it funny? Even as I'm answering all this and talking to you guys, part of me is thinking, gee, I hope I'm not offending anyone, or I hope I'm not saying anything that's misconstrued.
Wow.
But that's racial anxiety.
Yes.
That's to what we.
Hey, wait, what's Deb saying? What's that?
No, I was saying to Charles. Go ahead, Charles. Charles was saying what I was saying, but I was saying what he was saying. Like,
yeah, like no, but that's the whole umbrella of the topic: racial anxiety. The fact that you are sitting here, because like Dev had mentioned that he has, white people that's been in his life that, he don't believe are racist or none of that, are truly good people, and I have that too. And and what's crazy is, and sometimes in the conversations with them, I say like, sometimes it's hard to always see the other side of things, and I often say to them like, damn, I know you in a level that a lot of black people may not know you as a white person. I've had experiences with you in which you had my back or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Even as a white person, whether it was against racism or whatever. So I know how easy it is because of the racial anxiety that exists in this country, that people that don't know them can look at them or have the perception that they may be racist just because they're white. And I was like, it is something that they have to deal with as a white person, in which it's like, damn, how hard, like just looking at other people from a human perspective, like how hard it is for you to also have to deal with the fact that like you not racist and you got mad black friends and you like on not just I got the black friend, you know, and you not that type of, but you know, and to know that there are going to be a group of people that's going to perceive you to be racist just because you're white that don't know you. You know what I'm saying? And that's an unfair thing also to deal with on the flip side of things. You know what I'm saying? Like, because, you know, and especially if you are a person that really is supportive of the issues and of the causes, you know, and I feel that I have white people in my life that I know and I believe that, you know.
Yeah.
I do have actually a comment to add in. So I think it was very interesting. Even as we're talking right now, I think it's important to notice, like even what Stephen just said, right? Even the conversation which we're having now, which is for the it's a safe forum to having a conversation. He's aware of the comments he's making himself among in the form of us who usually have this chat, and is actually inquisitive and asking about what's your thought on the reaction of this, what's your thought on the reaction of that, and almost to the point of like almost apologizing a second ago for asking a question on that, and the whole thought process of like why is that even the case, like what comfort level or discomfort level is going on that even exists here in this form, right? Because our point is to have the conversation.
No, that's it. Isn't that it? Yeah.
Right. What brings about this anxiety? And like Charles, do you think you said anything to add to any discomfort level or that Stephen's having to bring that to him? Or Devron, did you mention anything that to add to discomfort?
But I think also to even get deeper, I think the level of caring about it is different also.
So explain that a little bit.
Like, because I wouldn't feel like I had to hold back or say what I wanted to say based off of how he may feel about it. Not that I'm trying to be rude.
But you're not in this position. But you're not in this position.
But that was my point. So you asked me, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't feel the anxiety of saying what as a white man on our show right now, I still don't feel no anxiety of saying what I want to say about white people or racism the way he may feel as a white man on our show of saying it about so I don't feel the anxiety of saying
somehow I lost it. I don't want to
like here's what I'm saying. I'm saying I do not feel the anxiety to speak about white people or racism, even though there's a white man on our show. The way he may feel in the reverse of speaking about racism and black people to me. That's what I'm saying.
I think this is so freaking important, right? This is so impressive. We're talking about this. This is the guts of it, isn't it?
Right, exactly.
I mean, it takes some kahunas to be a white guy and come up here and have a discussion that might be uncomfortable or foreign with 3 black guys or 3 melanated guys. I mean, at the end of the day, I respect you for coming on here and saying what it is that's on your mind. Earlier when you was like, yo, it's like sort of inside and, and how you were feeling. My whole thing to you was like, I get it, because if the tables was turned, I'm quite sure if I was on a podcast right now with 3 white guys and I'm talking about race, there might be some of those. With me, I'm going to say what's on my mind. That's one. But by the same token, will you all be able to discern between when I'm just being a gentleman and I'm not really sort of like putting things together because, I'm, pandering or I'm worried about how you guys are going to perceive me, versus just somebody that might be doing that. I'm already convicted to what I believe, but by the same token, I'm happy enough to know that it wasn't just one thing that shaped my existence. And a lot of the times when people see somebody like me, and I might have my my black dad shirt on, or protect the black woman back in the day, or whatever, if the only thing you see is a radical black man, you already missed who knows how much of who I am. But I'm also going to be unapologetic about the fact that this is me. This is my frame. This is how I think. I'm not hurting anybody. I'm trying to the best of my ability to help the world. But if conversations like this don't help people, then what will help them? Let's just what can really help people if we can't have these conversations. Furthermore, and I'm gonna go on a tangent, Mike and Charles, real quick. I had to tell them that. I read something that Matt wrote a little while ago, and I want to put it up here if I can find it really quick. And the thing that I need Matthew to understand is every time you ask me questions or you hint or say anything to me about race, or why am I talking about race and race and race and race, I'm not going to keep telling you that this is my lens. I don't want to keep talking about this stuff. Yeah. I don't want to have these conversations. And most of my conversations in my day-to-day are not about race. It's me living through a racist system. So it's not like every conversation that comes out my mouth is about race. The other thing is, when you wrote blacks, the blacks or blacks, that's not what we do. You could say black people and it won't offend most people. But if you just say the blacks or blacks, that's going to trigger some people. Why? Because it's just not what we do. And that's me saying this as a human. See my point? That's me saying this as a man to another man. And ultimately, if we're trying to increase the value in others, then we have to be able to listen to others and know if I'm doing something that offends you, tell me what it is and let me make the adjustment. But I read what you wrote and I'm like, bro, like, listen, like, I'm not against anybody. I don't go out here starting no trouble with nobody or nothing, but we're having conversations about things that affect people who look like me. And that's just ultimately what it boils down to. And the last thing I want to say is, in high school, there was a dude that was, can't remember his name. It's gonna come to me. And I'm gonna make sure I get it to you guys if I can remember. But he was an Italian dude, and me and him used to talk about race all the time. And it was so crazy because he would tell me, like, yeah, I ain't gonna tell you no lie, man. Listen, don't date no Italian women. You cool with me, And I'm like, well, damn, you know what I'm saying? Well, don't date no black woman. You cool with me? And this was our conversations. But looking back, I respected him and didn't even realize it, because at least he looked me in my face and said exactly what he was thinking and feeling, and he stood on it. I didn't have to guess. There was no guesswork to it. But the thing that I loved the most about it was we was able to just kick it all through high school. And imagine we had completely opposing views, like not even about race. Like we used to argue and debate about sports and who was better at this and that. But at least we had a conversation and I knew where he stood. With us, a lot of times we don't know when we go to work and, we're in the office, if somebody is a closet racist or just really don't like us or trying to sabotage our jobs, or they have a perception of us that, well, he can't do the work and whatever their minds might be. And we have to live through these things like almost all the damn time. We can't ignore it. That's just ultimately what it boils down to. If you have an issue, Matthew, lastly, with me saying to Stephen that some of the conversations that have been had are not for white people, then you're probably going to lose the lesson with that, because it's not me trying to offend you or him. I'm literally saying that there's some conversations when they're being had, they are directed from black people to black people. And when white people chime in, if you wonder why some black people are like, what are you doing? It's not a problem that you chimed in overall if you're just giving your input. But if somebody says something to you and they're like, yo, this is why this is happening, at least look at what's being said. You don't have to agree with it. You don't have to respect it. So I just went on record in something that's going to live into the digital infinite forever. And I'm saying something that I think is true. Maybe 10 years from now, we'll look back and go, oh, that was completely wrong about it. But I don't think so. I think history has shown us this. And now in this digital age, we don't have the luxuries of we just don't have certain luxuries just to have certain conversations, to work and do the work that needs to happen. Because I'm a firm believer that a lot of what other people see, I'm not expecting the government to correct gang violence in the hoods. I'm not looking for them to correct that. I'm looking for us to do our part and do the best that we can to talk to those younger brothers and sisters to give them another way or give them another option or a variable. So that work is for us. It doesn't mean that we won't accept help or good help that comes. It can't be beneficial to it. But I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I want to ask y'all something, and I'm gonna take it a little bit. I'm gonna take it away from this because I know we getting ready to wind down anyway. So I'm gonna not lighten it up, but take it off a race for a minute. And because this was asked way back in the beginning, and I was gonna actually ask y'all this too. With that Chris Rock incident, a lot of people said, "Yo, he's a comedian." You know, you can't start censoring comedians. You know, that type of talk. It was a lot of different opinions that way, right? So now, like, I personally don't believe that comedy has an unlimited boundary to just say anything. Comedy can cross over into being very hurtful and very disrespectful, you know? So with that being said, somebody think, what did you think about T.I. and his reaction at that comedy show to what was being said? Now, I know people said he was heckling and everything.
You probably have to
right?
explain it, Charles, because I don't think everybody.
Well, it was a video like so basically the comedian, they said he was also heckling the comedian, but the comedian started talking about him, his wife, and the sexual allegations. And he basically went up on stage. He didn't smack nobody, but, you know, he grabbed the mic and was like, yo, we ain't going to do that. You know, those was false allegations. Those was very serious things. You know, that ain't no joking matter, this and that. So, like, you know, but like I said, he didn't hit nobody and smack nobody or whatever. But what I'm saying is that goes to, like, is there a boundary just because it's comedy? And I'm not saying that Chris Rock's joke or anything elevated to, I'm not comparing which one was more serious or not. I'm just saying, because that's, you know, everybody's going to feel something is more personal or serious if it's directed towards them. And, you know, then when it's just said without being, you know, specific or things. So I was just wondering, like, what like, is it the same thing? Like that comedian, there was no boundaries. T.I.'s in the audience. I could go off on you about this sexual allegations that, you know, they ultimately said they're not pressing no charges or bringing no charges against him and everything, right? But, you know, so and he got offended by it. He was upset about it, which is ironic because he's getting ready to do stand-up comedy, I think, right here in the Barclays Center this weekend or something, you know. So here is a person that's getting ready to do stand-up comedy that's kind of like checking us another stand-up comedian about what they're saying. So that's what I was saying. Like, now in that situation, where, like, what do you think about that? Was he right? Was he wrong? Does he have to accept it because it's comedy or what? No, I know Tempest said, I know he started heckling her first. My thing is, though, me heckling you, does that then open the door for you to say everything you want? And just think about this growing up, right? There was a certain sense of, yeah, we could joke all we want, but don't start with my mother's stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, there was boundaries. Like, yo, don't start talking about my mom's, and don't start talking about, especially if it wasn't just random your mom's jokes where this person knew you and it was like personal stuff that they actually knew. Like, yo, that's why your mom's is, and it's real. It ain't, and it's funny to everybody else, but it's hurtful to you because you know the person that's saying that, you really know your moms and really know that this joke you making is something true about her or something like that. So even from young, we had our boundaries with what we felt, even joking. And obviously we weren't stand-up comics, though some people entertained the classroom and the lunchroom as if they were, you know, but there were still boundaries, even from kids. Like, yo, we could joke and all that, but you watch what you say out your mouth.
I mean, I'll give my quick 15 seconds on that. Like, I mean, the whole stuff, the whole thing is ridiculous. Like, you're in a club, like it's a comedy thing. Like, if you, I didn't see too much of that, but what I did see is like him in a club walking up to the front, somehow grabbing the microphone, and then like kind of giving his own speech and stuff like that. Like, when you're at that point, everybody just needs to go home. Like, you know what I mean? It's like the show's over. Like, what? I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there are things that could be offensive, but then maybe he should have left. I mean, I don't know. It just at this point, it's ridiculous to me. I'm sure it's offensive, whatever he said, whatever. But when you have to go up to the front and you're in a theater, you're taking the microphone, you're 2 steps from smacking them and having that whole incident all over again. I don't know. It's all crazy.
I grew up on too much Pryor and Andrew Dice Clay and a lot of other comedians. So I don't know, man. If you're gonna go into that world, you really got to be prepared because people they're gonna say what they're gonna say. Right, wrong, or indifferent. I don't primarily go to comedy clubs. I mean, I go now, but when I was younger, I wouldn't go because I was just worried I'd probably end up throwing a bottle at somebody if they said the wrong thing. Plus, I just didn't want to be joked on. I think looking back, I think some of my personal insecurities at the time I was still working with, and that's just being, straightforward. I'm not gonna say I'm still like getting information on that, so it's one of those things that's spinning. But homie, if he goes in there, and it's just like any other show, if you're going at the person that has the mic, or if you're going at that MC, chances are you better be real good because they're not there for no reason. There's a reason that they're there. And a lot of times they armed and they ready. And these people are not just telling jokes. They're people reading. You know what I mean? They're checking your energy. They're seeing what you're going to do. They're seeing how you're going to react. And once they see that angle, and everybody would know that something like that, would definitely cause a stir. And ultimately, I mean, it's unfortunate, but you gotta be ready. You gotta have thick skin to do that stuff. And I know I wasn't built for it when I was younger. You know what I mean? So, what you think, Steve?
I follow so little of modern culture. I don't have a TV, so I've totally missed all this. I don't know anything about it. But check this out, guys. And Mike, do you remember my brother Michael? Do you remember him? He was a year older than me.
Yes.
He does stand-up comedy. He's still doing.
Oh, get out of here!
Yeah, and so he's done some good stuff in his time, and he did a bunch of stuff opening for Kevin Nealon. So my brother was doing the DC Improv one time, and Chris Rock came in unannounced, and so obviously they put him on. So my brother talked to him backstage and all, and like he said he made Chris Rock laugh. They were just talking.
Wow.
But so it's a hard life. My brother doesn't make a lot of money, and he's does all kinds of little things to get by. But God bless him, he's doing it. So the funny thing is, I grew, for years I'd go to my brother's comedy shows to support him when he was first doing this. So I'd sit through so many comedians, and I got so tired of stand-up comedy because there's so many that aren't good, and it can take years off your life to be in a room where like there's a comic who's not good, and you're like, oh, it's painful, and no one's laughing.
It's like 10 people have to go on before me, and you have to like make it.
I spent a lot of time on that amateur comedy network and going back and forth when it was just I felt the same way, or it becomes so repetitive. You're going to shows where you're seeing now people like you're almost finishing the jokes because you've been so many times already.
Yeah, Charles has a good friend too, who's well known.
Yeah, my man. Well, Talent. I don't know if your brother. He probably know Talent. He was he's still heavily involved in the comedy. I don't go to the shows no more. Not specifically. I don't go to his shows no more. I just don't go to the shows anything. But there was a time I spent a lot of time in those comedy things, and I was even saying before, like I've seen them kind of move to an area where this ain't funny no more. You better watch your mouth. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah. Oh, yeah, Allison, yeah, cousin, yeah. Me and Talent, I don't Talon and my brother actually have a house in Mount Vernon, one of my brothers. But yeah, me and Talon was very, real close, growing up and different things. I used to go all over. I remember when, like, he first started before comedy became a full-time thing like that. I'm talking, in the 80s and stuff, when he still had a 9-to-5 job and everything like that. And, the early days, I don't know if you're familiar, like Peppermint Lounge, Club 88 out in East Orange and all of that. Jersey actually had a better amateur comedy scene back then,
Wow.
even more so than New York. But yeah, so Allison, I'm talking like that type of long ago. I'm talking about, early 90s and stuff like that. Being around is like that's how long it's been. But
We could this circles us back to everything we've been talking about to point out. So Jerry Seinfeld had some comment about he wouldn't do stand up on college campuses anymore. He said there's nothing's funny. They're so serious and everything's so politically correct. You can't say anything. Someone's going to take offense. I could be misquoting him or paraphrasing.
I don't know who's your brother.
No.
Oh, sorry. No, sorry.
Yeah. So the point is, Jerry Seinfeld was saying he would do comedy on a college campus. What's the point? There's nothing you can say that people aren't going to be offended. They're so serious about all of it. I just thought that was funny.
No, and that speaks to what you were talking about between us, like the whole cancel culture thing and everything. Like it's kind of ridiculous. Like, you think years ago comedians used to say everything, and I think it was it may have been even Kevin Hart who started making a point of like taking everyone's phones away when they enter the arena,
right,
wanting to have anything recorded. And for two reasons. One, you don't want everything going out on on the internet as to live in infamy, but also it's like that. I mean, it's like the same thing with the Oscars. Like once something is said, I mean, you're going to ruin your career off of one joke you made, and instead of just being able to say I'm sorry or something, like it's crazy.
Yeah. Do we have time for me to cite something that might be helpful, which is, since I brought up Seinfeld, Larry David, who was the Seinfeld creator, has a show, Curb Your Enthusiasm. Do you guys watch it, or know it? Or and so,
you know what? I love watching Seinfeld. I never liked Curb Your Enthusiasm. I don't know why, which is funny.
Wow. Okay. And people are very one or the other. It's interesting.
I know that name, definitely.
Larry David.
Sorry. I'm talking.
Oh man.
Man, it's faster to just say it than type it, man. I'm a one finger typer, man. So I'm like this, sending a text message, kid.
Yeah, that's me.
I don't know how people do that so fast, man, with them little, like, how do you hit all the numbers so fast?
I'm always hitting the wrong letters. But
let him finish.
Yeah. So in the most recent season of Curb Your Enthusiasm, there's a scene that Larry is online, and I don't know if it's a CVS or a grocery store. He's online waiting. He's standing next to his friend, and they're just waiting. And there's people, there's someone up at the checkout, and then someone's checking out their food, and the woman who should be next, who happens to be, it's a black woman, she doesn't move up when it's her turn. So there's like, Larry's getting all antsy. He wants to get it, I want to get up to the counter and buy my stuff. So the woman hasn't moved up, and she's still like 10 feet from the register, and the other person's finishing. And he's like, excuse me, miss, could you, you're dropping the etiquette. You're missing the keep the line moving etiquette. And she's like, what, so she turns around. She says to him, sir, would you say that to me if I were white? And he's like, oh yeah, absolutely. But it was such a great moment because we know Larry, he's always opening his mouth and saying everything to anyone. And he's usually right. He just says the things we wouldn't say. But I love that scene because not only does she say, sir, would you say that to me if I weren't black? He's like, oh yeah. But then she goes up to the cash register, and the white girl who's checking out the stuff, she says to the woman, she's like, I'm so sorry. I can't believe he said that to you. And, Larry's just fuming back there. There's nothing racial about it, but it's like, I hope this helps because it seemed to encapsulate so much of what we discussed, so much of like what you and I were emailing about, like political correctness. And maybe that gave you guys a chuckle. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. Not everything is race, right?
Yeah.
Not
yeah. I mean, Charles always hits on, Charles makes some good points a lot of the times, especially saying like, is everything race? And I think, it's not. It's not. you know. But what I do want to say is sometimes it's hard to tell the difference.
Mm,
Which
That's
is
all.
the racial anxiety.
mm,
It's sometimes hard to tell the difference. And
wow.
you know, just imagine, just you don't wanna feel that anxiety. But
Yeah.
even when you just try to go into La La Land, something reminds you that
Yeah.
this is, you know, and that's all. You know what I mean? It's not, you know, I'm so glad that my children have not experienced some of what I experienced.
Mm,
But nevertheless, I teach them to the best of my ability about the experiences, but I don't want them to be marred and hurt by those experiences. You know what I'm saying? You know, so
Mhm.
it's a delicate line. You know, it's a delicate line.
There's a lot. You done, Doug? Sorry.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, no, but there's a lot to be said on, or either thought about, even what we talked about here, and that it being not for everybody, and Charles specifically mentioned for him, but even particularly for Stephen, about just being super like self-aware of the content of what you're saying, even in this space, right? So, and that's something to think about. I think I'm going to think about it as we
Yeah.
get off, and maybe
And
we
you
have
have
a
to
follow-up
understand.
conversation. Hopefully, say again.
No, go ahead.
Are you still talking to somebody separately? Or not?
No. I was going to tell you something, but finish your point though.
Oh, I was gonna say that and start to wind down. So you could what was I gonna say? Shoot, I mean, I guess that's it. So you can I lost my train of thought, but
Sorry, man. I did that to you. My bad.
yeah, but oh, so no, I was just saying I'm gonna think about it here, and I was just saying thanks to Stephen for joining in,
I'm
and
freaking honored. I got to tell
I
you.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you for supporting us.
Hopefully it didn't seem
Why
too
not?
harsh, in conversation, but everyone's experiences are different, and a lot of it, you can see like there are a lot of, I think, added in this space is a lot of sensitivity in relation to things that
Absolutely.
people have gone through in their own experiences, and a lot of the times, even in relation to like the Black Lives Matter movement and anything like that, a lot of times people or Black people, melanated people, can feel that they're not heard in certain situations, or discount on certain things. Like, or even in Devron's conversation, right? He's mentioned certain things, and someone Matt who listens every week, and Matt has his own strong opinions, and he's always checking with Devron, like, why is this about race, and why is this? And I think his opinion has nothing to do with it, but Devron's experiences tell him differently. You know what I mean? So it's a hard conversation, right? So we try to do it respectfully, hopefully not, any bashing back and forth, but but we're having a dialogue, which is the good part about it, right?
Yeah,
And
right.
I've
And that's why I
never
say
said
it's so good that you join in to give your opinion as well, and I appreciate that.
yeah.
I think you should always try. I think like one of the things that's helpful is to always try to look at, like, especially these type of things, and this applies whether it's race, whether it's like police brutality, whether it's like the LBG what are the how it go in order, man? I gotta start learning that. You gotta
Yeah.
start singing that joint like the alphabets, A, B, C, D, because I be forgetting how to put them together. It's, what is it? L, B, G.
LGBT, right? I know it's that.
What is the order
G,
of them? L, B,
G,
Q, G, T.
GTQ, I think it is, and then there's
See,
plus.
this is crazy here. We
So
can't.
yeah,
I can't even figure this out. I'm not saying it's
it's
crazy. I'm
evolving, I
saying,
guess.
yeah, it's like getting a lot of alphabets in there now.
But let me just
But
say, you do
like
the
any of
wind
that,
down after
man,
this. Go
but I think you have to, like, sometimes have these conversations, not looking at it from the way you view it, but looking at it from the way that person views it, to try to get an understanding of like why. And that's why I always say, I think talking to people, and I think traveling, kid, really, really, really opens up the mind to these type of things, So it's LBTQ. When did what's the
Yeah,
INA, man?
INA. I'm completely that's
Now I'm lost, Allison. I really don't know what I'm. LB LGBTQ.
QI.
Hey,
They
guys,
gotta
it
arrange them
sounds like he's
letters
doing.
in a way that they flow better, man.
It sounds like he's reading the eye test at the doctor.
Yeah,
Like, yo,
exactly. Need like an
L, I
acronym or
think,
something.
what is that, a
Hey,
L?
look at
Maybe we could rearrange the letters and make
Nah,
an acronym.
I'm like, yo, what? I don't even know what the I stands for. Like,
Italian.
no.
is I intersex? Does I mean intersex?
She's gonna definitely say it in a minute ago. Acronym. Here, let's put up what Steve shared. Understanding.
Okay.
See, now
I
wait a
intersex.
minute. Now I wonder. Here's a thought. I don't know if it's even if it's politically correct. Kind of joking about this a little bit here.
I don't think anybody joke about it.
So think about that.
I said Italian
Like
for the eye.
elemental P, A, B, C, D.
I hope I didn't offend.
Well, I mean,
I think that could be.
But
that
you know
might be
what?
taken-
But that's the difference between a joke that's just a joke versus if somebody was on here and you're personalizing it to them.
But but you get that might not be your truth. Somebody else would say, "Hey, I've heard it
listen,
one too many times."
definitely, you're gonna have people that get offended with everything you say and do, especially in this culture we live in. But what I'm saying is, there's a difference between just making a joke and then talking to a person that you know and going in on them, where your comedy crosses over to become disrespectful or even like offensive. That's what I'm saying. So.
Oh, and Steven just said, he said someone could get offended by that.
Oh, definitely, you know.
Yeah.
What, something I said?
No, like, because I'm saying about, but you know
what?
what? Here's the reality, though. I laugh like we all do. I laugh at racial jokes. I laugh at jokes that in which they get on like black culture and how black people act. I laugh at jokes how white people do. So I'm not saying that. And I laugh at these type of jokes with the community here.
Oh shoot, Charles!
But
that sounds like I got a black friend thing, man.
Yo, no, I said the community because I ain't even trying to go through all of them alphabets again.
You might say that like I got a black friend, so I could.
Come on, man. Yo, listen.
I'm just all right.
I'm not. It's not to be offensive at all, but it's they whatever the community name is, the community of the LGB, like, yeah, come on. I'm getting tongue tied trying to say that. So I'd just rather just say the community. No disrespect, just the community. You know, I laugh at those type of jokes too, but I do understand that it can cross a line where it could become offensive to them. I like I told y'all last week, I've been at a comedy show where Paul Mooney went in so hard it became offensive to white people. You know, I've seen jokes cross the line and become offensive to different people for different reasons. You know, that's all I'm saying. And I'm not trying to, be disrespectful of them,
By the way, like, this is the same, like, we're in such a hypersensitive age that I can just tell all three of you guys are just good-hearted people. But isn't it funny? Charles is almost explaining or apologizing at this moment. It's so built into the mind.
Really?
Look at you apologizing now.
Yeah. I just like when I watched.
No, but I'm saying that to you. I'm not apologizing to them. I'm trying to tell you, like, I'm not being offensive to them. I'm not gonna go through the whole alphabet like that. That community.
Yeah.
And it's just for shortening purposes. It's not for any type of prejudicial things. I'm not protesting against your rights and all of that. I'm just saying, like, it's easier for me to say the community because I don't even have those alphabets memorized.
Right.
So I don't know how they go in order.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute.
I just learned about intersex the other day. But they consider intersex a medical thing.
Well, wait, you got some spelling typos in there. I kind of lost a. Wait, like my wins, the community spoken as. I think I got your general point, baby. Okay.
Hey, real quick. In the thread that we have, the real family thread, somebody posted Don Rickles. Did anybody watch that? Yo, he said some things in that thing that if he said that in 2022, the quote unquote cancel culture, a lot of people would be upset with him. I was crying. I mean, I literally was like, yo, but it also threw me back to a time where we could sort of joke about certain things, but we knew where the boundaries were. I'm gonna say it like that. We really knew genuinely where the boundaries were. You know, Mike is correct. Sorry, Charles. Said that things. Martin Lawrence, George Gansey, that movie with Chris Rock says. Yeah. Oh.
All right, guys. So I think we gotta start to wind down. Unless anybody want to add any other.
Nah, that's good, man. It's 11 o'clock.
Right.
This show kind of went longer than we but
it was cool.
I don't got to get up in the morning, so
all right, I think I still got to eat something.
Out with us, man. So, definitely feel free to come back at any time, and we encourage anybody that watches. If you ever want to join us, hit us up. If we don't know you, we might be like, "Who are you?" But other than that, I mean, if we know you, welcome, and we welcome all opinions. So even if you are with the LGBTQ community, if you ever want to come on and just chop it up, come on and chop it up.
Now, you know what? Some of these young ladies on here that are regulars
sound like you starting from the beginning.
I would like them to. You know why? Because we never discuss, and I know we talked about it. Like we never discussed like black and female male relationships in our community, relationship things like that. We've never gotten too deep. I think we had a little Kevin Samuels type conversation that kind of sparked things. And I'm not saying I want to talk about Kevin Samuels. I'm just saying like something like that. It would be interesting. If they wanted to join and kind of think that, because I think that conversation. I think that honestly, there's in our community, a lot of us see that kind of very differently. So it would be interesting to see different takes on that. That might cause more of a war than racial conversations.
I'm not messing with it.
Guys, my dad once said something to me like, "Look, people just want to be able to feed their kids," and that always stayed with me as like a bottom line of human nature. And and times are tight. I have to say I enjoyed the heck out of this. I'm honored. I'm so impressed with you guys, and I'm really grateful that Mike, that you invited me to do this. I would love to do it again, and we should talk jobs and the economy, and it's even a lot more to say on just what we were talking tonight. And the fact that I can make Charles laugh, that's impressive. Right?
No, that's good. No, we should. We've intended to get into some of that before. I think we touched on it a while back, but that's another topic we definitely.
Let's please jump to it, because people keep saying that a recession is like really around the corner.
Yeah, I have a lot to say, so I'd be honored.
That's one of the next topics that you're in on, Stephen. All right.
Is that your background also, as far as economics and financial things?
I got to tell you, I spent years just playing in bands in California and surviving.
Yeah,
and then we played the Great American and the Fillmore and stuff, but I had a serious accident that I'm lucky to be alive. We were setting up to play a gig. A bunch of lights from a lighting tower fell over, landed on my head. The point being, that retired me out of playing music. I started reading and studying and getting into politics and reading about it. And man, we've been sold out, and I got obsessed with trade policy. I played in a reggae band, and then here I am a year or two after that. I was obsessed with trade policy, and our jobs are being shipped out of the country. And I eventually moved to Washington and just worked my way into working at places and working on that. I worked for the Steelworkers Union, basically, for a bit. So I have a lot to say on that, and China and jobs and where we've been sold out and all.
You were in the reggae band too?
Yeah, we did old school reggae. See, I love the early Bob Marley, like the Lee Scratch Perry stuff, the Rocksteady stuff. And me and my friends, that's what we loved. That was the kind of band we just built up. We played on the street. That's how I fed myself for a while.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, were you familiar with the band that won the best reggae album this year at the Grammys?
No, I mean, I
he said he didn't have the TV, hasn't watched.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't really. I like John Batiste is awesome. I know he got stuff at the Grammys. I have his album. That's all I know. I don't even.
What's your instrument?
Bass. I mean, now I do guitar and all, but wow, I was the flying bass player, man. Yeah, so this actually wraps up our whole conversation in some ways, because February 3 of 2000, when Bill Bradley was running for president, he wanted to do a big rally in San Francisco, and he wanted the biggest multiracial band in San Francisco to be the entertainment, and that was us. We were quite a mix, the band I was in, and That's when we weren't there 5 minutes setting up, and this lighting tower way up there with a couple 100 pounds of stage lights blew over from the wind outdoors. The top landed right on my head, like a direct hit. I'm so lucky to be alive, but I was laid up for a long time. So that sent my life in a different direction. And a picture, if you're laid up and not doing anything, I started reading about politics and nonfiction and government. And that's when I got into, trade policy, got obsessed with. So I have lots to say on that if you want another time.
Oh yeah, we got to get you back on that because we got to get back to some of those conversations about
Right on.
The financial things that are happening and
Yes, sir.
Themselves as well as educating others. So thank you, Steve, for coming out.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Charles, we are definitely going to wrap it up.
Yes.
We are not having the after show tonight. We're not doing it. I'm saying it now because Charles, I see it. You lit up.
I'm signing off. I'm letting you. So let's get the.
I'm wide awake tonight.
Let's get the
Sometimes
closure,
y'all get me sleepy.
Steve, trust me, we're saving you right now because we can talk. I don't want to talk.
I could too. I mean, the adrenaline gets going.
I'm not getting.
Nah, sometimes he talk about once we get off the live, we'll still be on like another hour kicking it about stuff.
Yes, for a while. So, gentlemen, have a good evening.
Yep, thanks.
All right, sea la paz en la calle, me entiende?
What can you say what that means for those who don't?
Yo, let there be peace in the streets. You understand?
There you go.
Let there be peace in the streets, man.
Peace in the streets.
Amen.
Peace.